What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and as you can see, we are back with another deck profile. So this is the V deck that I play at this moment. It's the Rising deck. You could build two decks. You could build the Rising deck, and you could of course build the Rising Hyper deck, who also play Dudleys. But because we don't have Emperor released yet, we could only play the mixed deck between the Dudley Lucifer and the Rising, or go back and play the deck that plays Bull Spike, Spiking Cyclone, or General Siegfried, but basically the more aggressive build that also plays Rising. There are some different opinions about which build is better, but in my eyes both are better depending on your playstyle, depending on the format. But for now, because we're also doing the matches between this deck and the Dudley deck, I thought why not to do a deck profile to show you the current Rising build that I play. So this is the build. We will zoom in and talk about everything you have, which will also be explaining the trigger lineup as well. And then at that moment I will also be saying why I play that much of a card. And then we will also come back and talk about how could you change the deck around to look different. Alright, so after zooming in, now we could pretty much talk about the lineups that we have, and also why do we play those cards, what do they do. So of course we play the 4 copies of Rising Nova himself. I mean, this is self-explanatory. The deck runs around him. You need to be able to ride him to get into your maximum combos. What Rising Nova does is, of course, he has the 2 abilities. The first one is that when you ride into him, you get both markers, which is a great ability that could help you in the V premium, but also in premium. But in this deck, that makes a huge difference because you are moving the markers around, and having Force 1 and Force 2 is just insanely good. The second ability is about him targeting 2 other grade 3s, and with that you get their ability. And the grade 3s that you pretty much be targeting are of course the 4 copies of Bull Spike and then the 2 copies of the Spiking Cyclone. You have Spiking Cyclone and you have General Siegfried, and pretty much up to you, you could play whatever you like. I like Spiking Cyclone more because of the power it gives and because of the way that it consistently could get you that extra attack while General Siegfrieds need to hit. So the combination of these two is just great. I didn't find it necessary to play more copies of Spiking Cyclone, just the 2 is in my eyes enough. When you have the Bull Spike, the reason why I play him at 4 is because it's also a good ride target by itself if you can't get the Rising. And for some reason I just don't get the Rising all the time. So there are some games that you will be chilling on the Bull Spike. But again, if you want to play less, you could just play 3. I would not advise you to play less than 3. And the last grade 3 that we add to the deck is of course the Juggernaut Maximum. The Juggernaut Maximum is just a great card because it's so easy to get out with cards like Corona, and because it's the biggest beat stick that you have, especially when you attack into a grade 3. So the 33 column that you just make with it and 1 marker is just great, but whenever you get into the second grade 3 ride, you will be make 1 more marker, and with that your attack would be 43, which at least attack twice because of the Spiking Cyclone ability. And that's just crazy. Your opponent would not be able to survive those attacks, especially if you also have your secret weapon. The secret weapon is the new grade 2 that we got, which is the promo card, which is called Gunbuster Linebacker. So there is of course a very important thing to know about this card, is that this card has an errata. The first ability needs a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, which is in my eyes a very heavy cost. It should have been just a Counter Blast or just a Soul Blast, but Counter Blast and a Soul Blast is just too much. But even with that, it's not a problem because you pretty much use him for the second ability. The first ability is him gaining power, but the second ability is that he could attack or intercept from the back row if he's chilling in a column with a grade 3. What pretty much means is that you could get 1 more attack out of your turn, but also you could just place him in the early game when you call something with the Rona like a Juggernaut, and he would be able to attack but also intercept from the back row, which is just great. You only play 2 copies of him because, as I said, he's a secret weapon and he's not as a necessity, he's just to add in that extra attack. But the card that you really want to play out for is of course Rona. Rona is your best right target. Rona is a very good Vanguard. Rona is whatever you like her to be. She just makes the deck consistent and get you that grade 3 that you need. Her skill is very good. The first ability that when plays you can't last and you call a grade 3. But the second ability is also pretty good, being able to boost a grade 3, which is good. The last grade 2 that you add to the deck could pretty much be whatever you want it to be. There are some people who play Breach, there are some people who play the Shield, but pretty much for me, I like to play the Bracky. Why do we play Bracky? Because of the fact that Bracky is another good powerhouse and we only play 2 copies of Juggernaut. That's why the Bracky is really good. He hits good, he hits hard, he gives you soul, and he's just a good powerhouse. And in the early game, this card with the Commander Cannon is just really good because it hits great numbers. Talking about Commander Cannon, we play that card at 3. I didn't find it necessary to play it at 4, and there is also a chance of me taking him out to play Wonder Boy in the deck. And with that, you actually get easier soul, but you also get the right cards back to your deck when needed, like you losing the 2 copies of Spiking Cyclone, you not having any Juggernauts left in your deck. The Wonder Boy could help with that issue, and that would also be the change that I change about the deck. But this is the deck that looks, or the way that this deck looked in the match videos that we showed you with Dudley's. So this is also the deck that I am deck profiling at this moment. Of course, we add in the 4 copies of Acrobat Verdi. As I said, there is always a reason you want to ride into Rising. There is no other better right target in this deck than Rising, and Acrobat Verdi helped you with that. But not only that, Acrobat Verdi could make your Quick Shield, your unnecessary draw triggers, because you play 8 draws in this deck, or at least my version of it plays 8 draws. So Acrobat Verdi could make any of those cards into a grade 3, and all of your grade 3s are good to have in your hand. If you have multiple Rising, that's good. If you have Juggernaut, you could still call it. Even if you have both Juggernauts, it's okay, because you could still call one, and then later on you could put it into the soul to have more soul, or your opponent would retire it, and then you have one more in your hand and you just call it. So as long as you have the right card to discard, Acrobat Verdi is just amazing. And of course, we don't forget about the Ambush Dexter. I mean, the card is so good. It's just an easy plus. For the counterblast of getting 2 grade 3s out of 1 is just good. Some people also forget that he could also make a grade 2 into 2 other grade 2s. So if you have a Bracky on the field that you don't need, if you have a Rona that you have already used, you could of course make that into your secret weapon, and a Bracky, which is a powerhouse, so that works as well. But mostly you'll use it to get the right grade 3s to the field. Ambush Dexter is a card that I really don't like to put down as a shield value, because it has so much value to have in your hand, especially because this deck actually doesn't really use that much counterblasts. You have enough to use for Ambush Dexter. Last but not least, of course, we have the grade 0s. We start with our starter, play whatever you like. I like the SP, so running Sniper for me, of course. And then for the triggers, we have the 4 crit. This is the only crit that I play. And then when it comes to the draws, we have the 4 PGs. We like, of course, to play the 3-on-1 when it comes to Linux. So the 8 draws right here, which is something that we have to address, because some people play 8 crits, some people play 6-on-6, but I don't think that you have seen lots of other people who play the 8 draw. The 8 draw for me is not about defending, while most people think that it's about me want to play the late game and stuff like that. Well, no, it's not. Because of my playstyle, I actually take lots of damage early on, and the draw triggers help you with that. Also, just drive checking a draw or damage checking a draw is always good. Having it into your hand is also good, because there are no other cards in this deck that you would rather discard. So the draw triggers are the perfect card to discard with your PGs, with the skill of your grade 3 searcher, which is of course the Acrobat Verdi. So Linux right here and Poland are actually just amazing. So for me, this just suits my playstyle better. And then when it comes to the Yule, of course you guys didn't want me to play all out Tiara, so I added in the one Adelaide, and actually she's really good, and it's just fun to see the Adelaide. I've had her as a 6 damage heal multiple times, and that's just amazing. Just to see yeah, just the look on your opponent's face is just priceless when they see the Adelaide as a miracle heal, and that's just amazing. It's just way too much fun to not play her, but also at the same time I just want to play the one copy of her. Of course, in the future you will see cards like this will make a big impact on the format. So let's zoom out and talk about all the changes the deck could do, and also how the deck would look like, especially with the adding of the Wonder Boy, the heal trigger, and of course there is a chance to add in the General Siegfried. Right, so after explaining the cards, talking about the deck and how everything looks at the moment, what are the things that you could change about the deck? Well, when it comes to the grade 3 lineup, there is another grade 3 that you could add to the deck, and that's of course the General Siegfried. You could add 1 or 2 copies of him, or you could take out Spiking Cyclone and replace him completely by General Siegfried. Pretty much up to you. I find this grade 3 lineup looking very well for me, although I do want to take out 1 Ball Spike, especially by adding the new heals to the deck. When you get the chance to add the new heals to the deck, there is no reason to play this much grade 3s anymore, because you could always make a heal into the right grade 3s that you want. So you are not afraid of losing your Ball Spike anymore, and it would be okay to play only 3 copies of him. So the first card that we will take out is 1 copy of the Ball Spike, which we'll put right here, which means that your grade 3 lineup would pretty much be the 4 copies of Rising Nova, of course, and then you will only add the 3 copies of Ball Spike, 2 Spiking Cyclone, and 2 Juggernaut. Of course, you could add in a General Siegfried if you want to, but again, for me, I do like the card a lot, but I don't think it's necessary to add in the current format that we have. So we'll only be taking out 1 of the Ball Spikes, of course adding the heals, and then everything else about the trigger lineup, as I already showed you, will pretty much stay the same. So we will still play the 4 crits, and we will play the 8 draws, and then the 4 heals will change into the new grade 3 heal, because it's a grade 3, because it has a very good skill, and yeah, because you could search it out with Acrobat Verdi. You could make a Ambush Dexter, you make a heal into, again, as I said, whatever grade 3 that you want. So it does make the deck better to play. The grade 2 lineup will pretty much stay the same. I did try 3 copies of the linebacker, but I didn't find it necessary. As I said, I like to call him my secret weapon, and that's when he needs to play secret and be secret. Also, don't forget that the first ability still costs a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, which you will never use, or you will not use that fast. But what I do want to change is the grade 1 lineup. I think that there is a big chance that me taking out the Commander Gary Cannon and of course the grade 3 to add in the 4 copies of Wonder Boy. The Wonder Boy is actually really good. It's definitely a very good card to add in the deck, especially where you want to take out as much of your normal units out of your deck and put the right cards back to your deck if needed. When you lose the 2 Spiking Cyclone, then there is no coming back to that. So the Wonder Boy could help with that. And the same goes for the Juggernaut, and the same goes for Brackeys, and you could always just put triggers back to your deck, especially if you will be making your heal trigger with Ambush Dexter into something of your grade 3s, of course. So the Wonder Boy will be adding in, and the Commander Gary Cannon will be taken out. Although I'm already a big fan of Commander Gary Cannon, but I think when you look at the grade 3 lineup, there is a better way to put those cards back to your deck when you need to Ambush Dexter something into something, and also just the ability to take that much units out of your deck is really good. So this pretty much is the only change that I would do about the deck, is maybe put in the Wonder Boys, but definitely put in the heal triggers. And then I didn't feel like it was necessary anymore to play the 4 copies of Ball Spike. So that's pretty much it about how the deck would look. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in our channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, as we said, and stay tuned for more of the upcoming matches, because we finally will have the new cards coming up for every clan. So we'll be play testing those against each other, and we'll see and have fun a little bit with them. Alright guys, thank you again for watching. Until next time.